Quid est veritas? These are words from the Gospel of John between Pilate and Jesus. Normally, we would hear it as truth. What is truth? And I think it's fitting for us because Jesus says to Pilate, I have come to proclaim the truth. In other words, that Jesus is the truth. And that's when Pilate responds with truth. What is truth? Maybe we can replace that word truth with peace. Peace. What is peace? Reflecting on that, I looked up the definition of peace in our normal dictionary, and the first one was a tranquil time. A tranquil time. The second one was a time where there is no war. And both definitions to me left me wanting more. I think all of us in some ways would think peace means a little bit more than just a tranquil time and a time where there's no war or conflict. So what is peace? Well, peace and the lack of it, I think peace is one of those things that we can describe what peace is first more by what peace isn't, right? What peace is not. So for example, I think many of us, we think and we strive for peace in a wrong way by avoiding conflict. Because we think that the lack of conflict means that there's peace. Well, all we have to do is look at Russia and the Ukraine to know that avoiding conflict is artificial peace, right? I don't pretend to have all the answers for why Russia is invading the Ukraine, but what I can tell you is it's wrong, right? Lots of innocent human life. But it's not like this conflict came out of nowhere. I think many of us know when we avoid conflict and eventually someone's going to have a volcanic eruption. And it's like, wow, whoa, where did that come from? Well, it came from all these things we didn't talk about. Avoiding conflict is a sign that there is no peace. What's the second sign that there's a lack of peace? Our tendency to blame one another. So I look at, just go back to the very beginning of human life. Adam and Eve. Not to blame them, because it's going to sound like I am, but what happens at the very beginning? There's Adam and Eve, and God gives them one command. Just don't eat the fruit. Just don't do it. That's all I ask. And what do? They eat it. They eat the fruit. It's like, you had one job, and we wouldn't have all this mess that we're living in today. And they ate the fruit. And what does God do? He comes to Adam and he says, dude, why didn't you listen? Well, problem number one is, what does Adam do? He blames the woman, strike number one. Like, dude, bad idea. She did it. Strike two, he blames God. No, really, it's your fault because you put her here. So we've been blaming each other since the beginning. And our tendency to blame is a clear indicator there's no peace and unity. And what's the third indicator that there's no peace? When we hold on to unforgiveness. We hold on to our hurts as a reason to stay divided, and it just perpetuates more of these things. There's a movie, you knew it was coming. Remember the Titans. Now, you're all nodding because most of us have seen this movie. I think I saw it like 10 times in high school. Every time a substitute teacher, put on Remember the Titans. But it's a good movie. And there's a moment, when Coach Boone is trying to get his team of black and white players to just coexist. He just wants them to coexist so they can play football together. And he makes them get up at 3 a.m. to run to Gettysburg. He makes them run there. And they get to Gettysburg, and he looks at his team, and he says, listen, I brought you here because 100 years ago, our country was fighting about the same thing we're fighting about today. We still haven't figured it out. And what happened 100 years ago was we didn't solve our racial conflict. We didn't do what we needed to do, and it ended in the destruction of life. And he says to his team, if we don't figure it out, if we don't come together, we will also face the same destruction. And we have the same problem today, don't we? We still have racial conflict. And we've got to figure it out. Got to figure it out. And the way we figure it out is by relying on Christ's peace and how Christ gives us peace. My peace I leave to you, my peace I give you. That's what we hear in our gospel today. So what does Christ's peace look like? Well, it's the opposite of all the ways that we don't have it, right? So avoiding conflict. What does God do? There's this problem. We constantly sin, choose our own will, and turn away from him, and he doesn't ignore it. He sends his son. He sends his son, Jesus, into our world to address the conflict, to take care of the problem. God doesn't run away from it. He goes after it. He goes into the problem to bring a solution. What else does Jesus do? Jesus comes here not to blame us, not to say it's all your fault. If you just wouldn't screw up all the time, you would know that God's love for you. No. What does he do over and over again? I love you. I love you. He doesn't blame, he loves. And that's what causes a change in hearts. And then, of course, what follows after that is forgiveness. The forgiveness that only Christ can give. Notice that a lack of peace is always there when there is sin, because where there is sin, there is division. And where there is division, there is destruction. But with Christ, where there is love, there is unity. And where there is unity, there is life. That is the path of peace. So Jesus has come to remove us from the path of destruction and to put us on the path of life, to live in God's peace. So my friends, I think the important thing for us to pray with this weekend is, where is there a lack of peace in my life? And how is Jesus asking me to grow? Where is the thing, that the conflict that I need to address? Maybe spouses is, what's that thing that we're avoiding that we got to talk about? How can I solve a problem by not blaming the other, but listen and reflect and also hear what they have to say. And also, of course, to offer forgiveness. When we do these things, we allow love, unity, and peace to reign.